through the integration, the SAP customers are doing the most critical business processes, because through integration they can sell, buy, and ship.
Testing should not only be done by the testers, but we should enable actually anyone to perform the testing.
Possibly, if we would want to burn a lot of money, then there would be a way that maybe we could do it. My name is Michał Krawczyk, and I would like to welcome you today to this first ever episode of the Navigating SAP API Testing, the show where we will try to talk a little bit about why and how you or SAP organizations should be testing SAP integrations. And I hope we all know that SAP organizations are using integrations because these are the backbones of SAP digital transformations. If you ever experience a problem that, for example, you could not connect to people responsible for your legacy applications to test your SAP system, or maybe some of your EDI partners are not that much willing to support you in your testing of the SAP integrations, then this is the episode right for you. Our today's guest is Michał Ibrom, and together with Michał, we're going to talk a little bit more about the challenges of automated end-to-end testing. Welcome, Michał. But before we jump into the topic itself, maybe you could tell our listeners a little bit more about your background. So, what have you done in the SAP API testing, and what is your experience so far?
Sure. Just at the beginning, once again, welcome and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are. So I'm really happy to be here today together with you, Michał, and participate in the first episode of our series. So regarding my background, I've been in the SAP world since 2017. So currently it has been 7 years, and I think that during this time I've already had a chance to be part of different SAP projects. These were mainly SAP S/4HANA projects in different roles. So both as a technical person, as a developer, as an integration consultant. But moreover, for the past several years, I've been helping some of the largest companies in the world in ensuring business continuity during their SAP projects by providing high quality testing, particularly API testing, so integration testing. So this is in a nutshell my experience, but I hope that the fact that I had a chance to participate in different projects in different roles, I hope that I gained a little bit more holistic view on different aspects of SAP projects, and specifically on how the testing is performed and how the API testing can be optimized. So that's it. I hope I will try to shed some more light on some of the tips and experience from my project later during our show.
Sure. Thank you so much, Michał. Our today's episode, during the episode, we would like to tell a little bit more about the challenges for automated end-to-end testing of SAP integrations. So maybe I'll ask you right off the bat, based on your experience in this field, what seems to be the challenge when it comes to this topic, to the subject of automated end-to-end testing? What is the biggest challenge that you've experienced so far?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that actually the biggest challenge, or the answer on the question, what's the biggest challenge, we'll find the answer already in the definition of the end-to-end testing, because in theory or by default, it's the goal of end-to-end testing to test a scenario, test the processing from start until the end with all the subsystems involved. So I think as the definition states, all the subsystems needs to be involved, and based on my experience, so particularly in the SAP landscapes, in the SAP projects, the dependency on the external subsystems, I would say that's the biggest challenge, because there might be different dependencies between the main one, like you cannot have access to the external systems, you cannot be connected to the external systems. Maybe, I don't know, maybe some resources from those external applications are not available at the specific time when you're planning to run the test. Maybe, I know, some data is not matching between the SAP systems and the other applications. So there might be a lot of challenges associated with the main, let's say, one that is behind the dependency. But that, I would say, that's the main one, at least based on my experience and based on the projects that I've participated so far. yeah, so I think that's the answer. But maybe I'm not sure if you would agree, or maybe based on your experience, you would like to specify something else, some other challenges.
Yeah, so maybe Michał, maybe for our viewers, if you could tell a little bit more, what are the numbers that we're talking about? So let's say that we have one SAP ERP system, and what are the numbers of those third-party legacy applications? Is it just one maybe test system where we need to that is connected to the SAP, or are we talking more about 10? Could you tell us more a little bit more about the landscape that you've seen in your experience?
Sure, sure. That's a valid point, because in general, I would say that the more complex project we have, the most dependencies are, yeah, biggest challenges, or problematic. So at least based on the projects that I've participated and that I'm involved even right now, so we are talking about hundreds of external systems, different external applications. So you can imagine it's a really complex, huge landscape where, let's say, SAP is usually the central system, but there are a lot of satellite systems around this one that needs to be, connected with our system, that is exchanging the data and so on. So this is at least my experience. For sure, there are projects where there are not so many external systems, like just few, maybe like dozen of such systems. So it would be, let's say, a different story. But the challenges, I would say, would be usually the same. So when you need to, contact someone from the external systems, you need to test something end to end, and probably anyway, yeah, you will face some of the challenges.
Okay, so
Yeah,
so it's not like one or two legacy applications or third-party applications connected to SAP, but usually a lot more, right? And
yeah.
I think if we also think about the Fortune 500, or maybe the biggest 2,000 companies in the world, is it safe to assume that would be around those 100 applications connected to the ERP system?
Yeah, I would agree. So
Okay.
as I said, I'm just talking based on my experience, but I think most of the big companies, those huge S4HANA projects that are happening right now, then usually we are talking about 100 plus external applications and different systems. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like a lot, but what about the in SAP? Usually, when we're discussing SAP programs, we usually have multiple tiers of SAP test systems. Like, for example, we have sandbox systems, we have development systems, we have test systems, we have quality systems, we have pre-production systems. Does the number of those tiers also affect the automated end-to-end testing in any way?
Yeah, that's another valid point. Yes, I think usually when, let's say, we are thinking, or we are describing it from our SAP point of view or perspective. So we know that usually our SAP program has different tiers, like you mentioned, let's say development, quality, production, and so on. But usually the external systems are not matching with the same, let's say, environments that we are having. So it
Hmm.
might be that they just have one
Would they have
production
more
system,
or less? Would they have more or less?
rather
Or
less, I would say. Of course, I
okay,
don't
so
want,
they do not have those, let's say, 5, 6 tiers of development, quality, task, pre-production. They have a little bit less, right? What is the
yeah.
what is the standard that you've seen? Is it like two systems, development and test, or
Yeah, I would say, yeah, usually it's like two systems, development test and
Hmm.
obviously some kind of production system. Sometimes there's only, let's say, two systems, like production and some kind of development test system, that are combined together. So it depends on, let's say, probably how big the system is, how many resources are there, and so on. But yeah, usually that's one of the challenges as well, that, we cannot just link one by one all our tires
Hmm.
from our SAP systems with the external environments available. So that's another challenge and another topic when it comes to
Okay.
the testing from end to end.
Okay, so if I get this right, there are at least two of those things. The first one is there's a lot of those a lot of the non-SAP applications that are connecting to SAP, and also some of those test systems from the third-party applications or non-SAP applications may not be even have may not have a corresponding system to SAP, because SAP has a lot more where we would like
Yeah,
to test. Okay,
yeah,
but Michał, maybe just for the viewers who are not that much into the integration space, more into the automation space, could you tell us why is it important? What kind of processes are there? What kind of business processes are running through those different applications? Is it anything that is really business related, or what are those integrations? Are those integrations that maybe we can skip for the purpose of testing? Is it something really important? What kind of interfaces are being tested, or maybe companies want to test from your perspective, business wise or functional wise? What is this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think again probably it depends on the way or the area where company is operating. But I would say that we have usually most of the business areas covered in the integration. So like order to cash, source to pay, some other HR integrations and so on. So it depends obviously on the type of the business that the company is running. But I would say that there are different integrations from a business point of view, and obviously that's something that we need to test, and something that we are trying to encourage to companies to test. But as you can imagine, I would say it's not dependent on the business or functional area that we are testing, but rather on the integration itself, because technically most of the integration, it's not so important whether we are trying to test, let's say, an employee creation, or I don't know, an order creation or any other, let's say, business document creation, because technically usually those integrations are using some kind of integration platform, some standard files, standards and so on. So it's not so important, but obviously that's something that needs to be tested properly, so it's not something that we can just skip. So due to those, even we have all those challenges, we still need to try to test it somehow. So yeah, that's
Okay,
that's
so
that's the point.
very often what I also hear is that through the integration, the SAP customers are doing the most critical business processes, because through integration they can sell, buy, and ship. And if selling, buying, and shipping doesn't work, then usually we have a problem. So this is maybe why companies are trying to automate those interfaces. And yeah, and we will come back to that. But Michał, maybe one more question related to that. What about if the system the system which we want to enable for the automated end-to-end testing is not stored in our company? So for example, this is a system of a business partner. How does the automated end-to-end testing work in this case? Can we do anything, or is it something that we need to pass from this perspective?
Yeah, so of course we should try to do as much as we can. So, I would say there are two ways how we can do it. So, in the standard traditional way, we can try to involve that external system in order to run some kind of automatic end-to-end test. But as we've already mentioned, that's usually challenging, and it's not so simple, and there might be different.
And Michał, sorry to interrupt. Can we even
Mhm.
do it if the system belongs to a third party, for example, to our EDI partner?
I think technically it's probably not even possible to automate it
Mm,
fully,
mm.
with the involvement of the external third party system. We can try it, but at least based on my experience, we have not, we are not able to reach to let's say to a point where we are able to fully automate this end to end testing. So
Okay.
that's why rather we are thinking about some alternatives, or in a, let's say, some other ways how we can do it. But maybe I'll try to shed some more light on this one. But of course, so what I just wanted to point out, so obviously end-to-end test has a lot of advantages, and of course we need to try to achieve it, because probably that's the best way to test a scenario or a process, both from a, let's say, data point of view, from a functional or technical point of view, or just from a basic things like the connectivities. Obviously we need to try to do it, but in order to automate it end to end in the standard traditional way, that's really a challenge. And as I've mentioned, I have not seen so far such a working
Mm.
scenario that will work automatically fully end to end.
And Michał, just from the maybe I'll ask you also from the marketing perspective. So what is the vision what is the vision of automated end-to-end testing? How is it being sold right now? What is your perspective on this?
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's solved partially. I've touched this topic already. So we can see it like the best possible testing approach, because obviously, already the name says that, it's end to end. So you will test with the real external system, with the real data and so on, but it's just a theory. And
Mm.
unfortunately, the reality, I would say, verifies it in a negative way, because as I mentioned, there are many challenges associated with this one. And even let's make an assumption. We have the correct connection to the external system. We have, let's say, consultant or someone that is sitting just on the external system and waiting for us. Hey, tomorrow we are planning to run a test. Please, could you send us the data?
Mm.
We would like to test it. But then it might be that at the specific point of time, we'll see that, for instance, the data that was prepared in the external system is not matching with the data in our system. Maybe some other configuration is missing. And if we are talking about end to end for a really complex scenarios, it might be that we will not even reach to a stage or to a point of time where we will, test it until the end, because usually it stops at a specific step. Right now, it's crashing at some of the steps within the scenario. So that's why usually, it's rather theory than the practice, because the practice verifies it's really hard to achieve this goal. And one other aspect, of course, it's great to have end-to-end testing, but we need to keep in mind that it's very time consuming. Probably sometimes you need to even pay for the support from the external systems. And in general, I think you need to put a lot of effort, both from the SAP project team as well from the external system. You need to put a lot of effort to prepare all those end-to-end tests. So that's why I would
Okay.
say that it's rather some kind of miscommunication. So companies are trying to do it, which is great, but you need to keep in mind that the reality is not so pretty and simple.
Okay. So you're saying that the vision, how it's being sold, it's a little bit different from the reality. But let me maybe challenge you on this topic. So SAP programs in general are really complex. These programs are really complex. They sometimes involve 100, 200, sometimes 300 people that are working on the SAP program itself. So why can't the companies just add a few more hundred people into this program and have everyone involved? Is it like ineffective cost wise, or we wouldn't be needing them that much time as a normal SAP consultant who is working throughout the whole program? What is the problem, right? I'm thinking SAP programs are complex anyway, right? It's not that we're talking about some simple program and there's like maybe five colleagues, five consultants that will just do this program, and then let's talk about S4 HANA, for example, conversions, and the conversion is done, right? Usually this is not the case. So
Mhm.
if you're saying that the problem is people and resources, all of those dependencies, why don't we just take them on board on the program and use them for the whole duration of the program? What is the problem is that of that? Is it like too many people would be then on the program, or why companies are not doing that? I mean, from your point of view,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
would it
I
just
would
blow up the program, or what would happen?
I would say okay. I would say okay. I agree. If you have too much money, or you have enough budget to hire so many people from all the systems, you can pay all of them. Probably you're right, and you can try to do it like this. But I'm afraid that most of the companies, are not in the situation that they would like to have too much money, and they would like to put all the efforts on just the testing, because we just need to keep in mind that we are just talking about testing.
Mm,
We need to
yeah.
implement, we need to develop all the solutions, do all the other stuff. So we are just talking, from a high level perspective, about a small piece of all the SAP programs. So that's one of the aspects that I think we need to keep in mind. But yeah, obviously, technically, I think that should be possible. But as you mentioned, most of the programs are some complex, and in case there will be any changes or any adjustments needed, we need to rather think about some kind of scalable ways, or some approaches that you can adopt to your current situation. Because what will happen if you would need to integrate, I don't know, next 10 different systems, you would need
Mm,
to change something and so on. If you would always do it manually, so let's imagine each time you would need to hire, let's say, n plus new employees or new persons, you
mm,
would need to pay those external systems for the support. Of course you can do it, but as I mentioned, probably it's usually not the case that you would like to spend money on on the left and on the right to just
Mhm.
to achieve it. So that's why, yeah, we're trying to still achieve it, but in a different way, or maybe I would say in a smarter way.
Okay, so if I get this right, you think that possibly it could be the vision could happen, but that would not be, I would say, maybe cost effective from this perspective, if I get this right, right? So
Yeah.
possibly if we would want to burn a lot of money, then there would be a way that maybe we could do it, but the reality is a little bit different. And most companies are cost effective. They at least try to be, even if they have a lot of money. So it's not achievable that easily, right? Is that
Yeah,
is that
at
what,
least
what you're trying to
based
say?
on my, yeah, based on my experience and yeah, the perspective that I gained so far, yeah, I see it in this way.
Okay, Michał. So thank you for this. And we've also covered the topic of S4HANA programs, right? These are some of the biggest SAP programs right now. The transformations that are happening at least till 2027. But Michał, could you tell us a little bit more? How does the maybe automated? Let's start with this automated end-to-end testing is done with relation to different types of SAP S/4HANA programs. So maybe for the viewers that are a little bit less familiar with the S/4HANA programs that are more into the testing space, we have different flavors of SAP S/4HANA programs, right? We've got the new implementations, the fresh new implementations, so which are called the greenfield implementations. We have also brownfield implementations that are where we usually do not do a lot of changes. We just want to migrate the core to the S4HANA from ECC, but we do not expect any changes. And then we have the third color, or the third, let's say, flavor, which is selective data transitions. So programs like, for example, Bluefield or any other blue type programs, where the customers are, they want to do the migration, but they would do a lot of changes. They would implement new business processes. They would consolidate multiple systems into a single one. Right now the topic is also the big topic around SAP is also the clean core. This is also how many companies are viewing this journey, right? They can either go for the clean core with a greenfield program, or they can try to make some clean core adjustments with a bluefield program. My question would be, where is the automated end-to-end testing? Where does it even apply? Does it even apply to all of those, or do we have to think about only some of those programs when we're talking about automated end-to-end testing? Or maybe in some of them they are so small that it doesn't even make sense to do any kind of full-blown testing, because you're actually not changing that much. Maybe you just want to you just want to do some really really basic testing, and that's it. If you could maybe elaborate
Hmm.
on that.
Yeah, there are a lot of aspects I think on this topic. Yeah, so I think let's say the colors or the project types that you mentioned, I think that's one of the main categories how we can, let's say, distinguish the projects. And in general, I would say I have experience with greenfield and with brownfield projects, so I will try to shed some more light on those two types of projects. So maybe we can start with brownfields, as you mentioned. So one of the standard projects from this area would be probably some kind of upgrade, let's say, from an old SAP ECC system into S/4HANA, for instance. So
Mhm.
in this kind of projects, I think usually the biggest change that is happening is within our SAP system, because as already mentioned, we are just upgrading our SAP ECC into S/4HANA. So usually the external systems, so we don't need to test end to end just right now, or at every stage, because usually those external systems are not changed. We are not touching them. Usually they are still expecting the same inputs and output as before the upgrade. So let's say they are not even interested probably sometimes in what kind of system you're having, because they just need to have proper data, they need to receive proper data, and it's fine. So in this specific brownfield projects, I would say that yes, the let's say the end-to-end testing makes sense, but as I mentioned, probably we don't need to do it with the let's say original source external systems, but we can just try to simulate them. We can just try to make sure that whatever we are sending or receiving into our SAP system, it's stable, it works fine, and we can concentrate on our SAP system. So yeah, for sure in brownfield it makes sense, but as I mentioned, maybe not the, let's say, real end-to-end, but rather trying to simulate or mock the external satellite systems. Then the next test type or project type, sorry, that I've mentioned is greenfield. Actually, that's a project that I'm involved in right now. So let's say this, yeah, by default, these are the systems that we are implementing from scratch. So we just have a new, completely brand new system that we are implementing, and in case we would like to integrate it with some of the external systems, it might be that even some of the connections are not in place. So it's technically not possible to test it end to end because the external systems are not connected with our SAP
Mhm.
greenfield implementation. So what can we do in that case? Either we can just wait or have some delays until the connection would be in place, but obviously it's not the goal or the way how we would like to do it. So it's better again to simulate them. If we can reach out maybe to them, or we can try to prepare some kind of test data, we should rather do it even right now. And obviously you can either try to use some tools, some automation tools for that, but if you're a developer, you can even use some standard API testing tools like, I don't know, Postman or SAP UI, and probably it will still do the work. But please still keep in mind that you need to think about some scalable ways. So if you would like to do it 1 or 2 times, it's fine, but if you would like to run it on 100 mass scale or with 100 external systems, for sure you need to have some better solutions. So yeah, that's for the greenfields. For bluefields, as I
And
mentioned, I don't
Michał, maybe just one thing. So you've mentioned that with greenfields, the system is just being created, right? So is there even any point in doing automated end-to-end testing for a greenfield program for the template? Does it even make sense? If nothing is yet done, nothing is yet customized, and it will only be customized at the very end stage of the program. Is there any even application of the automated end-to-end testing?
Mhm.
Or that,
That's
or
the
can
valid
we say
point.
that, yeah, that we have this, but only after the template or after the first go live from the template is in production, and we start with the rollout? Where
Mhm.
does even automated test end-to-end testing apply in this scenario?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a valid point. Yeah, I would say that for sure you're right. It does not make sense to apply the end-to-end test just at the beginning of the journey, if, in case you're actually not even sure what you're expecting or what should be the results. Probably once you're just thinking about the solution, you're preparing the solution and so on. And I think even there's a so-called testing pyramid that shows that at the beginning or at the bottom we have just a simple unit test and small pieces that we should try to test, and then only at the end, once all the other testing phases are covered, we should go into the end-to-end test. So yeah, my experience would be that yeah, it makes sense, but for sure not at the very early stage. Rather, once maybe we are live, or maybe we have some kind of references or comparisons that we can pick up while validating our test. Because one other aspect of testing is just maybe an off topic, is just we can run the test, but the question is if you know what you're expecting, or how to
Yeah.
verify that whether the results are fine or not. You can automate everything, but if you don't know what you're expecting, then probably we need to go to do one step back and firstly think about it. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Michał, for this. So I think the colors or the flavors are also pretty important, because there's just different use cases, right? For different flavors. So
Yeah.
Michał, I get a question actually on the chat from Renata Bachal, which may be applicable. So why do so many customers believe in this approach? So I'm assuming she was mentioning the automated end-to-end testing approach. Why do they believe in this? Is it like they do not know any alternatives, or they're not aware, they've never seen anything like this, or maybe the marketing is very strong? Why do you think about that? Is it
Mhm.
is it something else?
Yeah, thanks, Renata, for that question. I think for sure marketing is one story, but yeah, as I've already mentioned, in theory or intuitively, we can say that the end-to-end testing is really the best way to test something, because you have the best possible resources, the connections, and so on. But due to all those challenges, maybe not all the companies are, I think, aware or on all the challenges and the problems that are associated with it. But the answer partially on this one would be that, as I've already mentioned, we should not stop doing end-to-end testing, because it makes sense, it's really good. But instead of doing it in a, let's say, traditional approach, we should do some kind of simplified end-to-end testing,
Mhm.
which maybe I can try to shed some more light on this one.
Yeah. So what Michał, if you have
Yeah.
any ideas on how we can simplify this automated end-to-end testing, what would be the approach? What would be the reasonable approach that can actually be implemented for at least most of those hundreds of external systems? How can we streamline this automated end-to-end testing into something doable or achievable?
Yeah. Yeah, so actually, this definition, or the sentence I mentioned, so the simplified end-to-end testing means that from one hand side, or on the one hand side, we are still trying to test end-to-end, because, as I've already mentioned, it has many advantages and it's fine. But from the other hand, we are trying to avoid all the challenges and the problems that we've listed partially already during our conversation. So how to achieve, let's say, those two goals, so to still have end-to-end but not have
Mhm.
all the challenges. So that's why we proposed something that we called as a simplified end-to-end testing, which means that instead of running the test end-to-end with all the original source systems involved, we are trying to decouple from them. So we are trying to just simulate the behaviors and all the integrations between our SAP systems and the external systems, so that we are making sure that we are still testing end to end, but without, or with not all the original systems involved, but with some kind of automation or tools that can do the work for simulating the all the external applications. So that's more or less the idea behind the, let's say, simplified or decoupling. Maybe I know it might sound maybe too good to be true, or it's hard to understand it. So maybe just to give you an analogy of such a
Mhm.
testing. So maybe we can think about some kind of autonomous cars, or self-driving cars. So let's say you're implementing, or you're working on this car from scratch, and then you would like to test how it will behave, let's say, in real traffic, or let's say in a real city. So obviously you're not just going directly with this car, you're not driving directly in a city or in a traffic, but firstly you're trying to simulate, the external, let's say, behaviors, the external landscapes, and so on. Then maybe once you will, let's say, you will do all the simulations, even you will not go directly, let's say, to the real production city, but rather
At
you can.
first, cardboard boxes. At first, maybe cardboard boxes.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
it's still simulation, right? You're still simulating. Even if you go with cardboard boxes, it's still, I
Yeah,
think, simulation,
yeah,
right?
exactly. But we need to have some, or learn some of the approaches from the other areas, so not only
Mm.
concentrate. So obviously we can apply it in our SAP projects and in our SAP challenges, but we should learn from the other real life situations. So I think one other analogy that resonates very good with me is the story with the testing the jet engines that you proposed some time ago. I'm not sure if you would like to share with
Yeah,
the
so
audience
it's
the story.
the quick story is that the companies who are fixing the engines, when they try to run it after fixing it or after doing the maintenance, they actually simulate all of the other components, right? They do not have a replica of all of the planes in the garage. They have to simulate everything. And I think this is also what you're trying to say, right? For the simplified end-to-end testing, we do not need to connect everything, right? At some point, we will have to do some end-to-end testing. That's for sure. But the simulation can reduce those external dependencies, right? So to decouple the systems. But Michał, when I'm thinking about this from a maybe different perspective. So let's say we decouple. Let's say we isolate the SAP program from those external dependencies. What is going to change in this program? Is it mostly the SAP, or is it equally the non-SAP applications? Are they also changing for the purpose of this S/4HANA implementation, or do they mostly stay pretty much the same and it's just the SAP that is changing? So by simulating, we're actually not losing that much.
Mhm. Yeah, I think in most or in majority of the cases, what's changing is only our SAP system because probably the other external systems like warehouses, EDI partners, and so on, they are running their businesses without any changes. Maybe we are running our business since years, and they don't want to change anything. We are just, let's say, making an upgrade from old SAP system into a new one. So we need to make sure that everything works fine from our end, and we need to make sure that whatever we are sending or the data that we are exchanging with the external system is working fine. So that's something that we need to concentrate. That's one of the reasons or the points why, instead of, let's say, asking or involving all the external systems in the testing, maybe we don't need them, at least at the early stage or at the first testing stages. Once we make sure that the changes that we applied, we implemented some new features in our SAP system and so on. Once we make sure with the decoupling approach, we make sure that it's fine, then maybe what I'm still trying to do and what I'm recommending, let's say, it's always good to do at least one end-to-end test, just to test such a basic thing like connectivity, because of course you need to make sure that, let's say, it's connected properly. But maybe instead of doing it every time, or let's say if you have 10 different scenarios, maybe 9 of them you can test with the simplified end-to-end test, and maybe just the last one at the end just to make sure you can run with the real, let's say, classic end-to-end execution. So yeah, that's my perspective
Okay,
on it.
so Michał, if I get this right, you're suggesting that the simplified testing can save us a lot of trouble and can actually test the things that we really want to test for the SAP program, because it's the SAP that is changing. Anyway, at the end, we will have to do some end-to-end testing because we need to make sure that the systems are connected, that everything is working. But maybe this is probably the last 5% or maybe 10% of testing, and the 90% we can do with the simulations. Am I getting it right?
Yes, you're right, and
Mhm.
that's exact experience from the project that I'm involved in right now. So
Mhm.
we are testing a lot of different scenarios from different business areas, and for instance, for one of the old order to cash flows, where there are multiple systems involved. In between, we have like 20 or 30 different scenarios to test different combinations of data, like different amounts, prices, and so on. But more or less, technically, these are very similar scenarios. So what we are doing, instead of testing, let's say, all those 30 scenarios with the external third-party system, let's say in a standard end-to-end, what we are
Mhm.
doing, we are testing like 90% with the simplified end-to-end testing. So we are
Mhm.
just mocking the external system, and then at the end, just to make sure at least one or two scenarios, we are trying to test end-to-end to make sure that there are no surprises and everything works fine. But you yeah, from one hand side, you can still have the good quality of testing and good results because you're making sure that, let's say, within SAP ecosystem everything is fine. But from the other hand side, you can save a lot of money and time in this approach. So that's something that really works, and yeah, I can see a lot of benefits in the projects that I've participated so far.
Okay, and Michał, so we've got another question that I would like to use here from Ali Marnia. So, do you think we should just never use automated end-to-end testing, or are there any scenarios that actually make sense for using this? And maybe this is also a question whether we should do end-to-end testing at all. So, if you could maybe reply to this: automated end-to-end and end-to-end, where
Mhm.
should we never do this, or should we actually use it in some cases? From what would be your reaction to this question?
Yeah, so obviously, for sure, we should still try to do end to end, because if that would not be the case, probably will not be talking to today together with Michał. But as I mentioned, we need to somehow try to do it in a smart way, or in a simplified way. So yeah, in general, about the automated end to end testing, there are different, let's say, aspects or different ways how we can validate, or what exactly we would like to validate. So actually today we are mainly talking about the API testing, so the integration between the SAP system and external systems. But there are a lot of other things that needs to be validated, like for instance the user interface, or maybe some other things. So obviously that's something that needs to be tested as well. For instance, if you had, let's say, previously old SAP GUI, now you're trying to use SAP Fiori, so it just maybe the layout or the UI is changed, but that's something that you still need to test. and that's something that you can automatically test as well. So for instance, you can combine some kind of solution for the automatic API testing as well as some solutions for the UI testing. So for instance, what we are doing at one of the projects, so we are integrating the INT4 tool that is responsible for the simulation of the external systems. We are integrating with the Worksoft that is responsible for the UI and all the user simulations within the SAP system. And such a, let's say, synergy between those two tools is really enabling us to test automatically end to end. So that would be, let's say, the one of the points for the automatic end-to-end testing. But as I mentioned, this is rather simplified automated end-to-end testing than the real end-to-end testing. And regarding the standard end-to-end testing, as I mentioned, it still makes sense, but for sure not for every scenario and at the very early stage of the testings. Rather, I would say that once you make sure that everything works fine from the SAP perspective, all the master data, all the configuration, I don't know, all the other stuff is ready, then of course, if possible, if you have the connection, if you have someone from the external applications that will be able to help you, of course, if you can, you should even do the end-to-end testing. But as I said, it's not even always possible. So that's the point.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much, Michał. So one other question that we have from Sing is, so how can we simulate? So maybe I would like to divide this question into two things. If you could tell us what is the why how do you actually do those simulations? How we can make the simulations easily and usable? And then the other question, where can we learn more about those simulations
Mm-hmm.
of or in this approach in general?
Sure. Yeah, so obviously it's not a secret that we are from INT4 company and we have a tool that can do all the simulations and will help, can help you with the automatic end-to-end testings. But so that's the tool, and in a nutshell, how it works. So firstly, we need to have some kind of source data that we can use for testing. We can either try to prepare it manually, but what we propose and what we recommend to do is to take it from the external systems, or if possible, best the real production system that you can use for your simulations, because that's probably the best source of data and the best, let's say, reliable data that you can use for your testing. Then you can just prepare some test cases in the tool, and in case you would like to simulate, let's say you would like to simulate the behavior of an external system that creates an order and will send it into SAP, you can just push a button and within seconds you can have a new order created in exactly same way as it would be created by the external system. So there will be no differences. You can customize it, but of course that's something that, let's say, these are just some additional options. So in general, firstly, we need to have some source data, and then once you have the data, you can easily simulate it. And maybe one
Michał, where's the source data coming from? Is it like, do we need to connect to all of the databases of those applications, of those hundreds of applications? Where do we take this test data?
yeah
How
valid
complex
points.
it is to take the test data?
Yeah. Thanks for that, Michał. Yes, obviously we don't have access to the external systems. It's not possible, just to log into the database of the external system, take the data we need and reuse it. Obviously, that's not something that we can do. So what usually we are doing, and that's usually how it works in the big SAP programs, that we have our SAP system, we have external systems, but in between there are some kind of integration platforms or some middleware platforms. So usually that's the place where the data is exchanged between the systems. So what the tool is doing, the tool, instead of going to the external system, it's going to the integration platform, and from there it can easily pick up the data that we need. We can of course automate it, and then once you have the data, let's say, saved locally in the tool repository, you're free to choose what kind of data you would like to use, and you can reuse it and, let's say, customize depending on your needs, on scenarios that you would like to test, and actually on the use cases that you have. Because one other actually aspect I wanted to touch here is that actually we should maybe a little bit change our mindset, or that's my lessons learned from the other project, that we should not just focus on testing, or testing should not only be done by the testers, but we should enable actually anyone to perform the testing, because actually anyone who's interested to check something in a system, if you're a developer and you're even implementing a new integration, some kind of new mappings, I don't know, some kind of new reports, you need to have some input test data to do it. So it would be great if, instead of asking, let's say, external system, hey, we would like to test a change that we implemented, could you please send me a message, if you could do it on your own. Maybe once the development is done, maybe someone from the functional perspective, or someone from the business would like to check something, they would like to have a new document created, it would be great if they can do it as well. Maybe even if you will, let's say, finish all the testing phases, we are in the UAT, let's say the end users would like to even see how, let's say, a new invoice looks like in the system, or they would like to have a look how an invoice looks in a Fiori UI, because they have never seen it. It would be great if they can do it as well. So that's something that we are trying to encourage people as well, to actually enable testing for everyone, and not only for the small group of test team that is responsible for this activity. So
But Michał,
maybe
maybe
it's an off topic.
to drill down a little bit on this, but the business users, the functional consultants that you've mentioned, the developers, they're not really they're not really into. Sometimes they may not even know how the testing solutions work. So for them it would be a new solution that they have to learn. How do you do this? How do you enable this let's say citizen testing, if we can call it like this? How can you
Yeah.
enable this?
Yeah, that's true, because obviously, let's say, from all the groups, let's say developers, as I mentioned, they can use even Postman or any other testing tool, and maybe that's something that will work. But of course, the end users, maybe someone who has even any experience with SAP, maybe that's a challenge. So we were thinking about it, and the solution, the approach that we applied here is to enable it via a chatbot, so that it's as simple as possible. We all use chatbots in different websites, different areas, so chatbots are everywhere. So it's very as simple as possible. So let's say all you need to do is to know what you would like to test. So you would need to know actually what kind of document or what exactly you would like to test, and then once you just need to click a button and the tool will do all the work. So actually there's no additional configuration needed, like, I don't know, some technical settings, some, I don't know, any details that you need to do. So you just need to know what you would like to achieve, or what kind of test you would like to perform, and then you can just ask the chatbot, hey, please create a new invoice or a new order in the system, and it will do it for you. So
Okay, so
actually,
Michał, I think you've raised a very important point, a very important point here, that is related to not only SAP testing, not only SAP integration testing. So the chatbot will not, what you're trying to say is that the chatbot, whatever kind of chatbot you will be using, he will not know what is it that you want to do, that you want to test. You will need to know what is it that you want to test, right? Is that
yeah,
a fair
that's the
assumption, that
prerequisite.
we still need to know what is it that we want to test?
Yeah, AI is evolving very fast, but I'm afraid we are still not in a place where someone else, or just, if you will just think, and then the chatbot will know what you wanted to achieve. So
Okay. So
let's be
so
patient.
chatbots we can use, but still we need to know what is it that we want to test.
Yes,
Okay.
unfortunately, that's still, at least this one small prerequisite. So you need to know what you would like to have, or what you would like to achieve, and then you can easily do it.
Perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. So Michał, where can we learn more about this? Is there can you tell us some sources where can we learn more about this approach, this simplified automated end-to-end testing, or the thing that you've mentioned around the simulations or service
Mhm.
virtualization in particular, because this is also the topic.
Yeah, sure. So together with other colleagues from INT4, we are providing or sharing a lot of learning materials. Most of them you will find on our website, so int4.com. But I think the best place, just to, let's say, a starting point, that I really encourage to check, would be one of the open SAP courses that we've made together with other colleagues, which is just specifically on the service virtualization for SAP programs. So you can learn in much more details what's the idea behind the simulation, how does it work, how it can be applied for different programs and different use cases. So that's something that I would really encourage to check. So the open SAP course on service virtualization.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Michał. So I think we've covered most of the questions that we got on the Q&A. Thank you also so much for watching this episode, and thank you, Michał, for taking part in this first episode. Let's hope that this will not be the last one. Let's hope that we'll be able to dive in some more topics related to SAP integration testing. If any of you guys would like to get notified about the next episode, please also try to make sure that you've signed up for the newsletter. And yeah, and we'll hope to see you on the next episode. Thank you so much.